Hello everybody and welcome to today's newest video. Today's video is going to be about the North Node transiting the 5th house. So I've been meaning to make this video for a while, probably since I made the video about the 5th and 11th house axis. So I'm so excited to come here today and make this video because I think it's one of the most important houses in the chart, especially as it relates to like our inner child and our joy and our expression and just who we are at our like core levels, specifically like our heart space. And yeah, so let's get started. So, what is the 5th house? The 5th house is the house of hobbies, pleasures, entertainment, drama, creativity, love, romance, playfulness, children, the inner child, gambling, risk taking, and so many other things. The main thing that I'm going to focus on in today's video is love, uh, and self expression. Okay. So I'm going to talk about my experience when North Node trends into my 5th house, but yeah, it's going to be more so encompassing that. So North Node transited my 5th house. Oh God, what dates were those? Okay, I have 5th house in Cancer. So if you care to look up when that was a couple years ago. Um, but yeah, so when North Node transited my 5th house, let me tell you guys, I had a boom in creative expression. Okay, so what is North Node? I can't even go further without talking about North Node. So North Node, there's two distinct different definitions, right? But the North Node in Western tropical astrology is about your destiny. It's like, where are you going? It also, to me, kind of talks about what is the main focal point. um what do you keep going back to? So it's going to be this part of your life that you notice, no matter how far you veer off your path or whatever, you're always going to come back to that point. Okay. And in Vedic astrology we have the K2. Okay, and so K2 and the North Node have literally two different definitions. um, but there is kind of a similarity because there's this energy of obsession and not being satisfied. But I do notice the North Node, what I've noticed, the definition is not necessarily this energy of not being satisfied, more so when you think about Rahu. I know I said K2, but I meant Rahu. Okay. So, um, when North Node trends in my 5th house, like I said, I had a boom in creative expression. When I was growing up, I used to write and I was naturally creative, but more so inwardly, right? It wasn't really something that I did outwardly. Didn't really show a lot of people, and it was something that I pretty much kept private to myself. And only a few people really got to see my creativity, maybe like my teachers, stuff like that. But for the most part, after like elementary school, going into middle, going into high school, and then going into college, I honestly was not very creative. Um, I didn't draw, I didn't paint, I didn't dance, none of that stuff. Like, I wasn't into the dramas, I wasn't into theater. Yeah, I liked movies and TV shows, you know what I mean? But I wasn't interested in being a part, if that makes sense. And I have to go back a little bit before I even get into that to tell you my backstory when it comes to the arts. So when I grew up, so I was born in New York, born and raised in New York, and I went to a school that had quite a bit, of there was not an importance in creativity, but like, sure, you know what I mean? Like, we used to have like performances and things of that nature, and I was a part of them. I was a part of the dance group, and I loved to dance. I also have a step grandma. She's no longer here with us, but I have a step grandma. She was a folk singer, and I also danced background for her when she did her performances, at particular events. So when I was growing up in New York specifically, dance was something that was a part of my life. I wouldn't necessarily say it was important to me, like, you know what I mean? I like think back to myself as a child and like I wouldn't say it was important. It was just something that I did and I was good at and that, I liked, I got to spend time with my family, right? I also had a cousin who she was very much into the arts. She could sing and she could dance. So it was something that I got to connect with her. And then like of course like going to school and dancing. So but I never really put much thought into it. And I mean, I would go on a whim and say most children don't really put much thought in what it is that they're doing, if that makes sense, especially like when you're enjoying something, you're not just over here like, and you're not over analyzing whatever it is that you enjoy. Do you get what I'm trying to say? I'm not trying to say that children are mindless. Like, no. So, yeah. Then I moved to Florida and dance was no longer a thing. Dance couldn't be a thing. Why? There are many, many different reasons why, but a lot of it was financial. And there was a time that, I was really focused on dance after we moved to Florida, but then I just like stopped. It just kind of felt like this is futile. It's not going to happen. There was no there was no resources around and opportunities, to engage in the arts around where I was. And I didn't have the resources myself, in terms of what to look up, what to search, the type of research to do in order to find those programs or et cetera, et cetera. But then there's also so much involved with it, like how are you going to get there and who's going to pick you up and, again, finances. So I literally just dropped it. I literally dropped the idea of dance and stuff like that. And then even like um not despite, but aside from that, I also just wouldn't dance like in general. Like even when I was like at parties and when I was like, out with friends as I, started getting older and stuff like that. I just like never really danced. You know what I mean? It was just something that I guess I got so accustomed to not being a part of my life that, even though there were times where I wanted to, like I didn't. I was very shy and I was also very I just didn't want to be embarrassed, you know what I mean? So I would go places and you do a little, sway side to side type stuff, but I literally like would not dance. So then let's see, what am I going to talk about now? So that was really like my life from elementary school when I moved to Florida, middle and high school, and then college. So college happened and I danced a lot more in college just because like, you know, sometimes you're under the influence, so you dance a lot more and stuff like that. But it wasn't like I was, out here like, dancing, if you get what I'm trying to say. I wasn't a part of no group, stuff like that. I did try to be a part of a dance troupe for the college that I went to, but then I just felt like the objectives that they were aligned with and my reasoning for wanting to get into dance and my, you know, reintroduction just wasn't going to be fostered well there according to their objective and their values. So I decided to not. But I did end up going to one of their clinics, and that was the first time. It was actually like the day before my 20th was it 19? No, I was 19. So it was like a couple of days before my 19th birthday. And I went to the clinic, which was happening like 2 days before the official audition. And that was the first time I did choreography since I was a child, since New York, you guys, literally. And I went to the clinic, and the clinic was probably like an hour. I don't even remember. And I went there and like I was so shocked at how I was able to quickly learned the moves, I was like, oh. And it just made me think like, oh yeah, I'm better than this. Like no tea, no shade. It was just like I just felt like, wow, like if I'm able to pick this up this quick, like I'm good. I'm good anywhere. I don't need to be a part of this little dance troupe and this, you know what I mean? So I really like my confidence, was reignited within dance, So after that, like I said, that was when I was 19, a couple days before that. And then I still put dance on the back burner. And then I did acid. And then that was when I did acid was around the time North Node went in my fifth. I think it was still it might have still been in my sixth, which my sixth house is in Leo. But it went in my fifth and just it exploded. It exploded. I wanted to dance. I wanted to draw. I wanted to write. And like I said, I used to write when I was younger, but I was like, then I started journaling. As you guys know, I started dream journaling. I started like wanting to be involved in so many ways of, creation. And I did that, right? I started pole dancing, well, pole fitness, but yeah, I started pole dancing. I started writing, and then I went back into choreography. And oh my gosh, let me tell you, choreography was so hard. I don't know what happened between when I was 19 and then like doing choreography again. There was like a disconnect or something because I went back into doing choreography dance and I could not get the moves. Like I'm telling you guys, it was the hardest thing ever. I used to sometimes leave class crying, really frustrated. There was one time that I was living with, well, my boyfriend at the time was living with me, and I told him like, oh, okay, I'm gonna go to class, and I sat in the parking lot. I didn't even go to class. I was so scared because I was like, I just know I'm not gonna get it. So like, what is even the point of me going in there? And then I ended up going back home, and I think he was like, dang, like what happened? I don't remember the conversation we had. I don't remember if I lied to him and told him like something happened, and or if I ended up telling him like I just really couldn't, you know what I mean? But it was really hard. It was really devastating because of the background that I have in dance, and also just a couple years ago, you know what I mean, like doing the clinic, and then like now going back to that and still not being able to do that. So it really took a hit on my ego for sure. For sure. And I literally was just like, okay, like maybe I need to leave this alone, but I'm getting a little too far ahead of myself. So some of the other things I did when North Node went into my fifth house was I started volunteering for YMCA Read. So it was I told you guys about it in my Pisces Jupiter video. Um, Helping kindergartners learn how to read after school, help them, with grammar and punctuation and stuff like that. Not well, sure, okay. After school, so I did that. Again, the fifth house does have to do with children. I think also I might have met my boyfriend at that time during North Node transit in my fifth house, and his sun sign was in Cancer. So there's that as well. Let me think. Um, hmm, that would I need to look at those dates again. I'll probably look up the dates and then I'll drop them below. Not that it serves me any purpose right now, you know what I mean? But still. And then let me think. Oh, one of the big things that happened when North Node was in my fifth house was I learned so much about who I was, what I want, my interests, my likes. And I really stepped away from my usual um way of connecting with people, if that makes sense. So I had this group of friends that I was like close to at the time when North Node was happening, and then I started to break away more and more from that group during this fifth house transit. And I think a lot of that had to do, again, I was becoming so engrossed with my own creativity, with my own, relationship to self, that I really decided that I didn't want to be friends with people who didn't value me, didn't value my art, didn't value, you know, what I valued, if that makes sense. Like, we don't all have to have the exact same values, but if I feel like I'm being undervalued, especially with what I bring, what I feel like I bring to a friendship and things of that nature, then it was so easy for me to then realize, like, okay, this friendship is not worthy of me. And naturally, I just, you know, um, became distant and they became distant with me. It was something that happened naturally. Like, it wasn't like a, oh, we're become like, it wasn't like a conscious kind of noticing. It was again, when you get more attuned to yourself, which I feel like happens during North Node fifth house transits, you start aligning yourself with what it is that you love. You're naturally going to be separated from other people. Like, it's going to happen. You don't have to do anything if you don't want to, right? It's going to happen naturally because whoever it is that's not aligned with you, they're going to be like, "Oh, so and so is acting like this," or they're it's just you're not going to resonate with each other anymore. So, that was happening quite a bit with quite a bit of people, not even just the people that I was friends with at the time, but just like other people too. I just started to like really pivot. I used to be a part of this pretty big political group, and when North Node was transiting my fifth house, I realized I didn't want to be in politics anymore. I was like, I don't like, no, you know what I mean? I want to draw, I want to paint, I want to exercise my creative right as a creative being. So I left the group. I left so many groups. Again, we are talking about a fifth, 11th house axis here. So I left so many groups. I left so many different ways of thinking about who I was. And I was just like, I just want to express myself. That's what's going to happen during North Node transits in the fifth house. Um, of course, look at the point, look at the sign, look at the aspects that it's making, etc., etc. But there's so many things that's going to happen. And I have Venus opposite my moon, right? If you guys didn't know, my moon is in the fifth house. So having that opposition, you know what I mean? It was like, what are you going to pick? Are you going to pick the group, or are you going to pick you? And that's something that I'm still struggling with today. I mean, I'm a little bit more cognizant, I'm more aware of it, and I can balance it. But I'm even struggling with that today when it comes to my hobbies versus groups. Like, for example, the other day, so I just became a part of a dance membership, like a dance, what is it called? Dance studio. And I'm like dedicated. Okay, I'm dedicated. I've got my dreams, I've got my goals, I'm dedicated. And because I want to be a professional dancer. So the same day as like one of the dance classes, an acquaintance of mine who was a part of a community group in the area invited me to an event. And it was at the same time as the dance class. And I was like, oh my God, like, you know what I mean? So I was like, what do I do? I'm talking to myself, wondering if I should go to class or if I should go hang out. I decided to not hang out. I decided instead to go to class because I was just like, I've spent so many years, not so many years, maybe like 1 year, a part of this community group, which I'm so grateful for, so thankful for the people that I've grown with and learned from and etc. And, I'm so grateful for that. However, in the same breath, I was dedicated to the group because I didn't really have much of my own individual hobbies, at the time, that required me to go to class. Of course, I had my own hobbies. Like, I'm always writing, I'm always journaling, you know what I mean? But I do that in the comfort of my home, painting, things, drawing. I do that from my home and some other things. So it wasn't until I started taking classes, you know what I mean, that I was like, oh, okay, I see what's happening here. I'm gonna have to pick. And I was like, well, I'm going to pick dance every time. You know what I mean? Like, it is what it is, but I'm going to pick dance every time. So, funny enough, it was probably like a couple of days after that happened that another community event was happening that I got invited to. And it was on the same day as dance class. And I was like, oh my God, here's another time where I'm going to have to pick. I ended up doing both. I ended up going to dance class and then going to the community event because I was able to, it wasn't like the times were not clashing with each other. So I was like, okay, perfect. But yeah, it's just like things like that that let me know, you know, are you going to choose you, which is the fifth house, or are you going to choose the group? Sometimes you do have to choose the group, you know what I mean? Especially if you've so much been in the energy of the fifth house and you've neglected your friendships. Don't neglect your friendships for your hobbies. It can be difficult. There's a song called Real Person by Collaborate. And in the end of the song, he goes to talking about how sometimes you have to sacrifice your music in order to, be with your family. And sometimes you got to, sacrifice time with your family to focus on your music because you're just so focused on making it out. You know what I mean? And it's also, okay, that was end quote, but because it's also your dream, it's your goal, you know what I mean? And so there is this kind of like, how do I balance my relationships with my hobbies? You know what I mean? Especially if I'm in relationships with people who are not a part of those hobbies. Naturally, as you formulate and you go through those hobbies, which I talked about in a previous video, you're going to naturally meet people who are also a part of that same hobby, those same interests, and stuff like that. But not everybody in your life is going to also be a dancer if you're a dancer. Not everybody in your life is going to be a rapper if you're a rapper. And like, that's okay. You know what I mean? But it's also recognizing, like, how can I strike a balance and also not feel like I'm wasting my time when I'm doing something other than this dream and this goal. So it's a very interesting um you know axis that we're working with here when it comes to the fifth and 11th house. But North Node in the fifth house is going to, I say that all to say North Node in the fifth house is going to get you closer and closer to your heart. You know what I mean? Even though Leo is the heart, you know what I mean? But fifth house is still love. It's going to get you closer and closer to your heart. It's going to get you closer and closer to, what it is that you are passionate about and what makes you unique. You know what I mean? You're probably going to expand your creativity, you know, and if it's not expanding your creativity, you might have a child for the first time when North Node's in your fifth house. You might get into a significant relationship when North Node goes into your fifth house. Um, you might strike big when it comes to the casino when North Node is in your fifth house. I wish I went. I should actually I started working at the casino. I'm not sure if you know what. Let me look it up because I'm tired of not knowing these exact dates, so I can let you guys know exactly. Because I think I might have started working at the casino. Yeah, I was. Uh huh. So it says here North Node was in Cancer from November 7th, 2018 to May 5th, 2020. Yeah, I literally, that is so funny. I literally was working in the casino, but funny enough, and that was the first time that I ever went, the casino that I worked at, it was the first time I ever went to the casino just in general, was when I started working there. And we weren't allowed to gamble in the place of where we worked. We would have to go to obviously another casino. So that is so funny. Like, I didn't even, put two and two together. What else can I say about the fifth house and North Node in the fifth? Yeah, just be prepared to, especially if you don't have any planets in the 11th house. Let me tell you, those of you guys who have like no planets, if you don't have any planets in the fifth or the 11th, or if you don't have any planets in the 11th, but you have planets in the fifth, oh my gosh. it's going to be about you. That North Node in the fifth is going to be about you. So take care of yourself and really spend time in cultivating your gifts, your talents, because they also say that the fifth house is about our talents, right? Our creative talents and our skills. So it's going to be so much about cultivating that. Like, you know what I mean? And so please do not have anybody in your life who distracts you from that. Love is going to be your biggest muse. Your relationship partner is going to be your biggest muse, which is actually really funny because my boyfriend at the time, he was not my muse for any of the art that I was doing at that time. I actually had a crush, and crushes do rule the fifth house. And look, I'm not proud of this, but it is what it is. I'm just being honest about this transit, and I'm being honest about me. I had a crush on like two people during this transit, and they were my muses. So a lot of like what I created was literally with those crushes in mind, but literally none of my art at that time my boyfriend was in mind. Yeah. And that's a really tell all sign, I feel like, especially as a Cancer moon in the fifth. Like, it's something that I learned over time. I was like, yeah, if that person doesn't make me want to go and create, and then they're not the one. That's what I noticed. And I'm sure those of you guys that maybe have, um, and by the way, those crushes didn't amount to anything. Like, I feel like there's somebody out there that's like, y'all are wondering. I don't think y'all are judging me, but I think y'all are wondering, like, well, did anything happen with them? Like, no, they were literally just crushes and just like people that I used as muses. It was an escape too from the relationship, because the relationship I had was like really codependent, and was, not the best relationship. But yeah, like keep that in mind if you, especially like I feel like people who have Venus in the fifth, moon in the fifth, really pay attention. Like, is your lover at the time, are they your muse? And if they're not the one for you. Like, period, point blank. Like, they are not the one for you. Um, what else happened during this time? 2018 to 2020. A lot of different things as it relates to like getting into the metaphysical definitely happened during this time. We are talking about Cancer, which is the sign associated with nighttime, the dark, the subconscious, the shadow. It's also associated with being intuitive, the home. I ended up moving back home during this North Node transit. Um, I would say my relationship with my mom at this time, there was a lot of things going on with my mom at this time, especially as it related to my dad's side of the family. That's another topic for the Saturn and Aries video that I'm going to do. But the relationship with the mom is going to be highlighted also when North Node is in Cancer. Oh, I'm talking about the fifth house. Okay. Well, mine is in Cancer, so I kind of like, okay. In the fifth house, yeah. So again, there might be things about like your childhood that come up, mostly like what you enjoyed as a child, but it's really just going to be a time of creativity. Like, I don't really know what else to say other than that. Like, it's going to be about you, it's going to be about love, it's going to be big, it's going to be about creativity. I do suggest going to the casino during this transit for sure, especially when the moon is conjunct North Node in your fifth house, like transit moon. Go to the casino. Thank me later. Oh, I also started, so remember I told you guys I was working with children with the volunteering to help them read. I also during this transit started helping, I started working with children in terms of the after school program. I was a after school counselor. I was working at the casino and being a camp counselor literally at the same time this was happening. I had two jobs. So that was another thing. Um, what else can I say? Let me look up keywords of the fifth house just so that I have everything. Imagination, games of chance. What other things? Anything with games? Like, because that's true. Games and like video, any type of game is the fifth house. Let me think. Hmm. I don't know, honestly, if games was something that was happening a lot during that time. I would say no. Nothing's coming up. I'm not really a gamer person though. Like my type of games are like just dance, games that like make me move. But no, I don't remember like any type of games or anything like that. Let's see what else. Imagination. Oh, well, okay. So I'm looking on Google right now, and I just looked up on Google fifth house astrology, and I already said some of these, so I'm not saying all of them, but imagination is one that came up. So that's very interesting. I don't think I've ever heard of the fifth house being associated with imagination. Did y'all know that? If you do, like that's awesome. Like what else do you guys know about the fifth house being like associated with imagination? It does make sense when you think about the nature of the fifth house, especially with children and creativity and romance. I it makes sense that imagination would also be a part of it, but that's the first time that I've ever seen that. And if as far as imagination, I mean, I've always been you know, a very big imaginative person, but I can't tell you during that transit if anything particularly as it relates to imagination was, particularly, of importance. So I'm not sure. Okay, and then oh, okay. This is interesting. It says pleasure, which I think I did mention. So it says the fifth house can represent what makes you feel good, such as attention, orgasms, or the satisfaction of a creative project. I will definitely say I was ex- I was experiencing quite a bit of pleasure with my Cancer sun boyfriend at the time. That was actually like pretty much the only reason we were together, if I'm gonna be completely honest. Okay, so that is we have come to the end of this video. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you guys have already experienced North Node in the fifth house, which you probably have, like depending on how old you are, right? But if you can, if you remember what was going on when North Node was in your fifth house, let me know. Did you notice similarities to what I said, or things of that nature? Or how did it relate to you? If you have North Node coming up in your fifth house, like, let me tell you something. I am jealous, and I say that like very lightly. I am jealous of the Pisces in the fifth housers, okay? Because they're about to have North Node in their fifth house in Pisces. Like, what? You know what I mean? Who are they? What rising sign is that? That's not, is that Scorpio rising? Or is that, or is that Cancer rising? No, it's Scorpio rising. Yeah. Scorpio risings are about to have North Node in their fifth house. And I am literally so jealous. Like, I wish I could have North Node transiting my fifth house all the time. You know what I mean? But like Pisces? What? It's just, oh my God. So I need to figure out, when is North Node next going to be in Cancer? Do y'all know? Let's see. Uh, does anybody know? It's a 19 year. So it's going to be what? From 2018. What's 18 plus 19? 27. It's going to be 2027. Am I right? Or am I wrong? Let me look. Hold on. Well, we are going to have, so I was wrong. That was wrong. That was definitely wrong. Hold on. Maybe 30? Is it going to be 37? I said 27. That's not even, that wouldn't even be accurate. So would it be 2037? No. I don't, let me see. Hold on. I wanted to do it in my head. I wasn't a person who's good at math. So don't try me right now. 2037 Cancer North Node. Let's see if that's correct. Mm, okay. I whatever. If you guys know, let me know. So what's interesting though is that the North Node is going to be in Capricorn in 2028. So it's going to be in my 11th house, and we're still going to have that. So the fifth house is still going to come into play again. Okay. That's what I love about, astrology and the balance of it all is like, so I'm very excited about that. That's going to be in my 11th house. So again, we're going to have that 11th house, fifth house. I wouldn't be surprised, especially with the 11th house being like gains and groups and stuff like that. Oh my gosh. You know what it's making me think of? I'm being extra, but it's making me think of like a trio, like a music group, right? Let's think about like Destiny's Child, for example. And like the North Node is in the 11th, right? But people are like wanting you to go solo, and there's like talks of going solo, right? With the fifth house. Like the look, okay? So that's gonna be very interesting. What else can I say? Okay, that's it. So thank you guys so much for watching today's video, and I will catch you guys on another one. Bye.